Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Ruth Asime. Today we step into a difficult but necessary conversation. Two stories bound by the same thread. Society's failure to confront disturbing behavior and the choice of silence over accountability. On one side, we have Ezra Olubi, tech genius and Paystack co-founder, celebrated for his innovation, he's now facing resurfaced tweets revealing his sexual deviance, predatory behavior, pedophilia, incest, and even bestiality. He has issued no public denial about these damaging tweets and instead deactivated his X account, deepening public concern. Paystack has suspended him pending investigation. On the other hand, we have Ochanya Ogbanje, a 13-year-old girl whose childhood was stolen by years of sexual abuse at the hands of her uncle, Andrew Ubuja, and his son, Victor, beginning when she was just 8 years old. After several years of constant abuse, she was left with vesicovaginal fistula, a painful and life-altering condition that subjected her to stigma, shame, and eventually death. Despite the enormity of her suffering, those who stole her childhood and cut her life short still walk free today, unconvicted and unpunished. These stories may be different, but they reveal the same painful truth. When society tolerates silence, predators thrive. When troubling behavior is excused as brilliance, eccentricity, or harmless jokes, real harm follows. Today we ask, what must change to prevent the next tragedy? We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because coming up shortly is the meat of the conversation with my guests today. Oruche Precious, Stephanie Linus, and Frank Tietie. Perspectives will return in just a moment. It's time to get to know our guest a bit more, starting in no particular order from Oruche Precious, known as Mama P, a fearless young activist and feminist championing gender equality and social justice. We also have joining us Stephanie Linus, an award-winning actress and filmmaker. Her movie Dry brought global attention to vesicovaginal fistula, VVF, and the suffering of child brides. And making up this select list of achievers is Frank Tietie, a Nigerian development lawyer, activist, social entrepreneur, and public affairs commentator. He's well known for his advocacy work on human rights, social justice, and the rule of law in Nigeria. A great pleasure to have you all on Perspectives with me this morning. So let me start with you, Stephanie. Before the outrage and court cases, court cases, let's start with what we should really be addressing before we even get into the cases themselves. Do you understand? What does it say about our system when we have people posting very damaging texts on their pages and nothing has been done about it? Why did it take so long before this could be revealed to the public? What does that say about our social fiber, our moral fiber socially?
Well, it's just really sad what is happening in our society because a lot is going on. And I think one of the major, you said that in your intro video when you talked about silence. And, a lot of things happen in our society and we just keep silent. We overlook it. There's a lot going on. You see someone going through harm, you just say, it's not my problem. I don't want to deal with this now. I understand that the fears of maybe people have seen constantly where people who are supposed to be brought to justice are not brought to justice.
Is it more so, especially if they're wealthy?
Yes, they are not brought to justice, and you are looking for this person, something to happen to him and nothing is happening to him, he's getting away, he's been even celebrated. So what the younger ones or people are saying, okay, if you can get away with it, I can also as well get away with it. And then even if you go in the space of on the online space as well, there's a lot. And the online has sort of like stripped people of shame. People are looking for the next maybe shock factor. What is the thing that I need to put out there that probably will shock the next person? So you see a lot of things that are not supposed to be in the public space being put out there, shocking a lot of people. And sometimes people joke about it, but these are serious problems that we're facing in our society. We're seeing that the moral fabric of our society being broken down day by day. And if we don't do anything, and the society is just going to break up. Like they say, if the good people don't speak up, don't say anything, then evil is going to be the order of the day.
Okay. Okay. Can we have Ezra? Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that. Let's have Ezra. Sorry, let's have Frank Tietie. Now, welcome, Frank, on Perspectives. Ezra's suspension was the first step, but the optics and ethical stakes are far bigger. So what must Paystack, his company, the company that he co-founded, what must they do to enforce real accountability and show the public that this behavior has no place in the organization?
Oh, well, thank you very much. Interestingly, we fail to realize that we're a country with laws that prescribe very, very high standards, especially because of our colonial heritage. We don't really think that these things are considered not to be offensive against the law. For a long time, we've had what we call the Obscene Publication Act, which criminalizes any form of publication that tends to be corrupt or that leads to depravity. What we just had with the Cyber Crimes Act is to digitalize such kind of publication, such kind of statements that are depraved, that tend to be very offensive to the public. So it's there. So let's not think that we don't have laws that criminalize that, except that we've always been a very sexually permissive society, maybe culturally over time. But we have advanced greatly with the provisions of the law that tend to protect women, protect children. But there hasn't been much, advocacy to let the public know so that we can have a change of conduct. It's a gradual process, but Lagos State is doing very well in that regard. As for the particular company, Paystack, trying to hold to account the executive, the point is this: he hasn't really offended Paystack directly. Rather, he's offended the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The reason why we haven't raised the standards of respect for the sexuality of women and children in our country, because we've always had a male-dominant society, which is traditional and cultural over the years, is that the law enforcement has been very slow. It hasn't actually stepped up to enforce these standards. It's not the responsibility of Paystack to actually see to the prosecution of such publications that have at one time been offensive. They could have been dealt with, and probably the man would have served his punishment and probably restored by now. But because of the culture of impunity, lack of enforcement will on the part of law enforcement agents, that's the reason why it has lingered, and it seems as if someone just wants to get at him. As for Paystack and every other company, it's always very important, and in recent times, given the advancement we've had in these issues, for companies to have but not only sexual harassment policy, but such a policy that would, educate its staff about sexual standards in this country. Now, unfortunately, like I said earlier, these standards have always been there. Unfortunately, many of us don't know about them until it seems as if it becomes very offensive to someone and to the public in general. In this case, Paystack may have not educated its executive to that extent, and something just needs to change.
Thank you very much, Frank. Can we have Precious, please? Precious, good to see you. Now, I know that activists like you have played a very prominent role in calling perpetrators out. So how much power do social media outrage and the court of public opinion now have in determining the outcomes of cases like Ezra's and Ochanya's?
Okay, thank you very much.
Social media and court of public. Okay, good.
I'd say social media is I like to call it an equalizer. it is now a tool for accountability, you know. As much as some persons, a lot of persons are fighting tooth and nail to ensure they shut social media down, they can also not take away the fact that social media has done more good than evil. You know, social media is now a light that shines on every wrongdoer. Be you a politician, a CEO. Imagine Paystack, the Africa's largest fintech company, responding to media pressure, you know, suspending their co-founder and, you know, launching an immediate investigation. That is the power of social media. That is the pressure that social media brings. Victims, whistleblowers now have a room, you know, to function properly. People who normally will hide behind influence, wealth, you know, we hide behind, let's say influence, now comes to accountability because of social media. So it has played a vital role in ensuring accountability. It is a tool that it's a tool that is powerful, and that power cannot be overemphasized. However, social media is not the court of law. Yes, it is the loudest courtroom. That trial begins even before the judges sit, but it is not the court of law. And so one of its disadvantages is giving judgments even before evidences arrive. You know, they give judgments, it creates perception before the end of the case. And that is one thing I know that the bill that Frank Tietie talked about would work on. But in general light, I'd like to say that social media is a vital tool for accountability, and people should continually use it to promote the culture of accountability.
Thank you very much. Precious. Let's get back to Stephanie in the house. Now, Stephanie, you've spoken about the silence with families. So when a child reports abuse, what does the silence do to them as a victim?
Oh, of course.
And why are these reasons? Why do guardians or parents or whoever is in charge of that child, why did they choose to ignore such claim?
I think first of all, I think people are not aware that they can actually get help. And sometimes they are confused. Both the parents and the child, they are also confused in that situation, especially when it's someone that is a relative or someone that you trust. Mm-hmm. So, and also you've not seen enough examples put out there, or you've heard that this is when this happened to this person, this is what happened. Mm-hmm. So there's, you feel helpless, and there's not enough awareness. Whether we like it or not in Nigeria, there's not enough awareness on the pathways of when you find yourself in this situation, this is how to report. Because I think people breaking down the pathways is very important. Like if you have a case, make sure first of all you need to gather your evidence. If you decide to take it to the court of law, gathering your evidence at an early stage is also very important. So you take the child to the hospital for the doctor to be able to document this, and then you have to report the case. If you do not report the case, there's nothing anyone can do. So that means you guys want to make it solve it as a family issue. So there has to be enough awareness in the community for the parents to take action, for the community, the bystander who is also watching, maybe watching a parent or a community not taking action that is needed, to also take proactive actions, to also know what to do in that point, that if I call, that rescue is going to come. So because constantly we're seeing that, just like the Ochaya's case, we've seen that they actually went to court and nothing, the system actually failed her. So constantly the system is failing a lot of people, and you also want to hide the shame. People don't want your daughter or your family to be stigmatized. People are also afraid that maybe when I speak up, some sort of harm is going to come to me, because there's a lot of NGOs who are on the ground doing this work. There's a lot of harm that has happened to a lot of people. Or if you go and report, or even during the harm? I had a session 2 days ago where some NGOs were saying that the people will want to even beat up the NGO people who are representing the case. There's a lot happening in the system.
Why? Because of financial reasons or reputational reasons?
It could be that, or even going to the local station, police station, and people are asking you all kinds of questions and not being professional about it.
But who wants to beat up who?
The people you're reporting. So
the people that the culprits.
The culprits, of course, they don't want to go to court. Of course, they don't want to, or even sometimes
so they intimidate you.
They intimidate you, or sometimes even the community might be against the people. So that's where the awareness campaign needs to come in. That's where the empathy needs to come in, so that people get to understand.
So it's a question of misplaced priorities sometimes, where you support the victim, maybe because the victim is rich, or the victim has some influence or the other. murder,
then that
against maybe the culprit, against the victim's family that probably doesn't have as much stretch.
Yes, and there's also money play, so you all depend. So you can also money play, or maybe if you have money to bribe your way through and all of that. But like I said, we need to understand or have a system that works. We have all this law, just like the lawyer mentioned. We have all this fantastic law. We have the VAP Act. Is he being domesticated? They said he's been domesticated. Is he being enforced? Like we said, Lagos State, of course, is doing fantastic work, but at other states, because the Ochayan's case didn't happen in Lagos, it happened in Benue. So are other states taking proactive action to make sure that this thing is that these cases are brought to light or brought to justice and all of that? So constantly, when you see that, it becomes you're helpless. So I can see people, or sometimes even when they follow the case, it's true, you see how long it runs. They will run in such a way that you get tired as a parent, you get tired as a community. But why does it take forever? Because so that's what we need to also talk about, the court system. How do we facilitate or make sure that when we have cases of gender-based violence, it doesn't take too long? But it also, it's also a very difficult case to prove sometimes because, it's your word against mine. So that's why documenting evidence at an early stage is very important.
It's good that you mentioned documenting evidence, because I'm going to ask you a question about that later. But for now, we're going on a break. See you right back. Grab your cup of tea, as I always say, and see you soon. Okay, can we have Frank back in the house, please? Now, Frank, because people have asked that in this Ezra's case, how come it took so long for these tweets to be discovered? Apparently, they're about 10 years old, and it took his spurned lover to release them to the public. So my question is, when team members or colleagues notice someone posting disturbing content online, what are their legal and ethical obligations? And can he be charged, even though there's no evidence that he carried out his actions? Can he be charged for those posts that he did legally?
Oh, well, interestingly, yes, he can be charged based on the provisions of the Cyber Crimes Act, the Obscene Publication Act, and the responsibility there actually lies on the network that ought to have protected the public. And it's also important that even though many offenses should have victims, but in this case, this is a public protection mechanism that is criminalized to prevent such publications, because we need to protect the morality, especially of that of children, and then general public morality. Now, unfortunately, criminal acts don't have expiry dates. Whenever you bring them up, that is when the prosecution the state can decide to prosecute. The problem has always been that those who are meant to prosecute the law don't actually believe in the philosophy of the law. They don't even think that it's a crime. I have had to take the Attorney General of the Federation to court to insisting that he must prosecute a particular individual who has violated a child based on the Child Rights Act. It's a locus classicus case, because that was the first time in our country where the Attorney General of the Federation was actually compelled to prosecute an individual. I remember taking up that case in my name against the Attorney General of the Federation. That shows you how I had to start. It took me from the point of advocacy to the point of even going to court, not necessarily to prosecute the individual, but to get the Attorney General of the Federation at that time to do his job by exercising his responsibility under Section 174 as the chief prosecutor of the Federation. Now, imagine that I had to do that to the Attorney General. What about, what would the police? The police was so unwilling. Now, I've had to even do the same thing with NAPTIP, that is responsible for enforcing the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, because these, even though that's a new law, it sets very high standards in dealing with individuals, especially protection of women and children. So what we really need, that's why I said we shouldn't really drag Paystack into this. It's got nothing to do with Paystack. He may be a prominent individual, a co-founder, but the point is that this has to do with public morality, which is actually criminalized. And I can understand the psychology of why state actors like the police, the law enforcement in general, are unwilling to prosecute. Most times they think that not much can come out of it. But the point is this: I listened to Stephanie very well. well, and I realized that the difficulty does not really lie in gathering pieces of evidence by the victim, but in getting the state actors to take responsibility. I know how difficult it is. When you come to, make complaints to NAPTIP, for example, it takes time for them to even convince themselves to take steps, except where there is a special program that tends to, encourage them to do the same. And the same thing goes to other agencies, National Human Rights Commission, and so because it's easy to use the police as a scapegoat. No, the police actually needs to deal with more serious offenses and crimes. But there are other agencies that can, especially in the state, and that's why I cite Lagos State, that has raised the bar. So we need to come back to a society that is developing. There is a social change that is shifting towards protection of these individuals. And in that case, with this heightened advocacy, and I believe that Stephanie has used her, her theme celebrity status to make such kind of promotion. Before you know it, we will get a higher sense, a higher consciousness of the need to raise our standards in the protection of women against any form of sexual violation and against, public depravity as we have it now in the free-for-all social media. Let's get it straight. If you post anything in Nigeria that tends to be offensive to a child or offensive to anyone that is also sexually explicit, and God forbid that you find any form of pornography is found on your phone, that under the Obscene Publication Act can land someone in 7 years imprisonment. Is that serious? But Nigerians hardly know that. But these are our own law. They're not laws. They're not really foreign laws. They are written there in plain black and white. So I think that the consciousness needs to be raised in order for us to have a reduction of these violations. Unfortunately, we always wait for some kind of foreign intervention, as if we always want to be spoon-fed, but even in the enforcement of standards.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank, for that your commentary. But I want to ask, because now that you're saying that we cannot rely, or that we have not raised the bar high enough to expect reactions for tragedies like this, as individuals, I want to ask you, Precious, what early behavioral or situational warning signs should us as individuals and communities pay attention to in cases involving minors? And how should such concerns be reported before the abuse even starts?
Okay. There are a lot of signs that we should look out for as adults and individuals as it regards to abuse of minors. And I want to say, in Ochaya's case, the communities, her family, everybody, the government failed her. There are signs. You can't tell me that a child was abused for years and the people around her did not notice that she was withdrawn. These are signs. They didn't notice that she had scars on her body. They didn't notice that she was always scared of a particular person. She didn't want to be left alone with a particular person. You can't tell us that they didn't notice her walking step. Because this young girl died of VVF. I'm using her as a case study now. Ochaya's story shows how deeply rotten the system is, how deeply rotten our communities are, how adults see abuse and choose to look away. We should begin now to orientate ourselves, to look after these minors, as this has become a menace in our society. Ochaya's case is like a mirror to the society. There are a lot of Ochayans out there. The police looked away and they give Ochayan justice. Her family didn't give her justice. The community didn't give her justice. And you even see families keeping quiet because they want to save reputation. When complaints meet stigma, oftentimes silence becomes the culture. And that is what also happened in Ochayan's case. Thank God for social media that has brought this case back to light after 7 years. Even till now, are you aware that the petitions submitted to the police have not been attended to? Victor Obuja is still out there making music and planning vacation trips, posting it to our faces. This was someone accused of rape. This was someone whose sister saw on top of a minor. So communities can do better. Institutions can do better. We as adults can do better. We should encourage people to speak out. And one of the ways we can encourage people to speak out is by taking action. If there are no consequences to offenders, people will not speak out. Ochayan's case is a hard bond to a lot of us because we as women know how it feels to be tampered with. So I hope that with this interview, the institutions that are supposed to bring justice to this case will sit up and do the right thing. Communities should speak out, should create safe havens for people, complainants to come outside and speak, not meet them with stigma, not silence them, not, what's the word now? Not, shun them down in disbelief. Ochayan's case is a case that the various institutions, NAPTI, police, judiciary, would have used to set a standard. But like Tietie said, we always wait for international effort to even set our own standards. That's what I have to say as regards that.
Thank you so much, Precious. That is just so moving and it's so frustrating to listen to. But we're going on the break yet again, and we'll see you right back on Perspectives. Don't go anywhere. Now, let's have Frank back in the house. Welcome back to Perspectives. Now, Frank, if you recall, Precious said something about Ochayan's case, what went wrong that first time around. And I want to ask you, when her case was brought to light, there was also speculation about, they couldn't believe her and that it was her word against the culprits. And so that's why her aunt was charged, but her uncle and her brother, who were the culprits, went scot-free. My pertinent question here is that this is an 8-year-old child. Does she have the emotional maturity to even lie against her culprits? Why wasn't that taken into consideration that she, as young as she was, she must have been telling the truth? Because she doesn't have the emotional maturity to do otherwise.
I think the problem lied in the fact that we didn't have trained investigators and trained prosecutors. I think we're improving on that. I think we've had some international agencies supporting the National Human Rights Commission, supporting the police, and all that in firming up skills, investigative skills, in gathering pieces of evidence. But there's something in the Child Rights Act, which has been domesticated largely, in the last time I checked, in over 24 states of the Federation. It has a presumption in favor of the child. So, for example, the fact that there is any form of intercourse with a child, under whatever circumstances, and a child being a person under 18 years, the presumption is that it's automatic rape against the adult male. So all of that was a standard actually that was set when the Attorney General eventually ordered the police to prosecute that particular case which I initiated. Now, the truth about it is that we shouldn't be talking about this now if we had sufficient prosecutorial will, either on the part of the state where it actually happened, or on the part of the federal government agencies. I don't think it's all over. It's a criminal matter. There are usually several criminal elements in a matter that can be taken up at different stages. I think that Ochayan's case, my friend, I even contributed the money towards because I was far away from it. I would have been directly involved, but I contributed money to those who were in the forefront. My friend Lemi Ugegbe was at that time leading the advocacy, and I was assured that there was going to be sufficient prosecutorial resolve. But up till now, up to this moment, I tried to reach them. I couldn't. My fault anyway, to know the real status. I don't think it's all over, but my friend Mama P has sufficiently said it well, that the goal of prosecution is deterrence. If we have sufficiently investigated many of these cases in the past and taking the violators for trial, there would have been enough public awareness to prevent this happening. Now, because of this culture of silence, we've seen that presumptuously, this kind of violations going on, especially in the States, in places where we don't have vibrant media, vibrant journalists who can bring this to light. I hope that, in fairness, that with all of these sufficient interest and the resurgence of this conversation, both cases, that of China and that of such kind of explicit on an obscene publication with regards to the CEO will be brought to light, and we will now have this kind of collective improvement in the standards as a society. It's very dangerous to mention some of all these things, to do some of all these things in some of our Western countries, and because some of our male folks live here and go to those places with this mindset, with this permissible mindset in Nigeria, they are surprised that what they didn't think was wrong in Nigeria could actually land them in prison. They lost their jobs in prison and all those sort of things. So I think there should be some social awareness that comes from taking advantage of some prosecutorial opportunities that we have, especially in the case of Ochanya. Yes, the presumption is in favor of whatever the child says.
Thank you so much, Frank, for that insight. Let me get back to you, Stephanie. Now, there's this disease from your movie Dry. You spoke about the disease that young girls get from this sexual molestation, VVF. So please, I need you to describe in detail what the disease entails and how society reacts to it and what impact it also has on the victims.
Well, fistula is a medical condition that happens to, first of all, I want people to understand that fistula can happen to anybody, any woman, regardless of where you're from. But of course, it's more prevalent now if you're a young child that your body has not fully developed and you need to go through. And it's majorly caused by obstructed labor. Because they say when a woman gets pregnant, when the labor is prolonged, there has to be some sort of intervention that will come in to help salvage the situation. But you find out that, in cases of, majority of the cases, these people don't have access to good medical care and they end up having obstructed labor where the head of the baby will probably bore a hole on the bladder, and then there's a hole and it results to fistula. So we've had that, and then when fistula occurs, it's probably where you don't have control over your urine. And you can imagine, and also sometimes it's RVF where you don't have control over your feces. So you can imagine being that kind of a person, your mental state, your mental health, of course, is all messed up. Your identity is in question. You're being stigmatized. Nobody wants to associate with you. People shame you. People relegate you to the background. You can't walk. Your family rejects you. Just so many things happening to that person that you can't really function in the society. And sometimes people are also not aware that there is also cure for this when it happens, which is one of the things when I did the film Dry, when a lot of people saw it and people rallied around to figure out how can they help. And one of the issues, one of the things that I said to a couple of corporate bodies that came on board my NGO was that there are women who are out there living with fistula. We should actually go out and repair them. And through my Extended Hands Foundation, we've been able to repair a lot of women who have obstetric fistula. You can actually be repaired, but it's a thing that is such a shameful thing that you just definitely lose yourself. You can't be. I met a woman. I think one of the things that pushed me into doing Dry, I met a woman that had fistula before the Nigeria Civil War. She only got repaired when she was 80-something years old. People were thinking that she was a witch, that this happened to her. I met another one that had it in 1976, and she got repaired almost 10 years ago. So you can imagine living all your life with this condition. So
it's just an open gaping hole. There's no difference between the vagina and the anus.
Yeah, but the condition is that as you're here, if you want to go lick yourself, you can actually excuse yourself and go there. But you don't have control. It's coming out of your body.
It's just a big hole that just
and it just
comes out from the same
There's
exit.
no control. And like I said, it can happen to anybody. We're living in a country where maternal health is not prioritized. We see a lot of women who die, even in Lagos, everywhere across Nigeria, where people don't have good medical intervention during childbirth, and they end up having this condition. We've repaired women who came from all parts of the country. So it's also more prevalent when you now have a child whose body has not fully developed, going through that, and also going through that pregnancy stage, and then end up having fistula, or a child who's repeatedly raped and her body being destroyed, and you don't know what's going on there as well. And you have also the FGMs and so many other issues that causes fistula to happen. So it's such a horrific thing that people need to be aware, people need to understand. And like I said, awareness is so important, and that's why people need to watch my movie Dry, because I've seen a lot of people who have seen this movie and it changed their lives. We screened this movie in Gambia, and a month later they banned child marriage in Gambia. So Nigeria should actually take up this movie to make sure that a lot of people see. People, we need, like he's talking, everything boils down to awareness. If you don't know that you can get help, you feel helpless. But if people can see this film, get educated, make informed decisions for themselves as a parent, because all of us are involved. It's not only the government. You as a parent, what decision are you making? How are you training your child? How are you looking? What safety measures are you putting around your kids, your children, to make sure that they don't fall victim? So giving those information and creating awareness within our family system, within our community, within the government is also very important. And all of that as well.
Ask, well, why does society frown about it? Do they see it as promiscuity?
No, they don't understand it. Do you
so
understand?
What do they think it is?
That's what I'm saying. Like, people will tell me that, do you know, I have never heard about fistula till you did your film. Do you know about it? You didn't know
but
about
in locals, what do they link it with? Is it promiscuity or sexual exuberance?
They could do that. Some people, like in the film, maybe you went to go and sleep someone, maybe it's the god, or maybe you're a witch or something. They really didn't understand that it's stemming from that whole prolonged labor, or you being abused, or the FGMs, or all of that. So because they will say, oh, this person did it, but they got away. But why come your own is not different?
Yes.
But they don't know that it's coming out from there. So that education is very important, because when they get to understand it, I think they will now have empathy and then stop stigmatizing these people. And they also know that there is help, that you can actually get treated, because there are fistula surgery. It's a specialized skills. Not all doctors can do that. And also, again, we also find out that cesarean section can also make you have fistula, because if you have a child and there's obstructed labor and you don't go to a skilled health worker, and a quack doctor is busy cutting you up, they might end up also giving you fistula.
So the only time you know that you have fistula is when you cannot control
your urine or your physis.
When you can't control
RVF,
it.
yes,
Okay.
RVF, yes, your urine or physis.
That is just that thought is harrowing to even imagine.
Yeah. So our maternal care, I mean, you see a lot of women who die.
You mean there are people who have had it for 20 years, 10 years, 15 years?
I met people who had it for a long time. They didn't know, and it's like a 30-minute operation.
They didn't think there was anything wrong with them?
They know that something was wrong with them, but they don't know what to do. They don't know that they can get help. They will go to different doctors. Not every doctor can actually perform that surgery. So it has to be a specialized, and because it happens to a lot of people who maybe do not have financial, are not capable financially, they're like, oh, let me go and do other things. That
and at this point, they're incapable of even having any sexual relationships when they have fistula.
You'll be shocked. Some also
can you have sex with that disease?
You're not supposed, but you'll be shocked. There's some people, because we met a case. There's a girl I repaired in Ogoja, and she had this condition, and they actually discovered that someone also was sleeping with her in that condition.
In this condition?
I'm telling you.
Oh my
You'll be shocked. I mean, we're talking about the paga guy, the pasta guy. People are perverse.
Totally. Okay, let's get back to Precious in the house, please. Now, Precious, I want to ask you. Can you hear me, Precious? Precious, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. I want to ask.
I can hear you now.
Yes. After surviving abuse, victims, like she just said, often face stigma and isolation, like Stephanie said to us. So what practical steps can communities take to ensure survivors are reintegrated, supported, and empowered rather than further marginalized? What do we need to do to bring them back in and gain their confidence?
Although I'm a bit disturbed, because I'm getting hints that the lady organizing the End Security protest in Edo State is being detained at the DSS facility, Edo State. So that is troubling me. However, in response to that question, I think the communities should create shelters for the abused kids. You know, I'm just going to highlight 1, 2, or 3 ways I think communities can come in to help these victims. Create shelters, protect them from their abusers. I've seen cases where these children come out to complain, you know, talk about what they are going through. And during investigations, they are meant to stay with their abusers. That is a problem in itself. That is another set of torments. That is a big problem. Take Ochaya, for example. The sister of Victor found out that her brother was abusing this minor. And after speaking out, the moms in the story said they prayed about it, cautioned the brother. The girl was meant to remain in that house because there was no school in her community, so she couldn't return to her family. Now, allegedly, according to the story, the father continued the abuse. So I think communities, institutions should create safe havens for these victims, protect them when they come out. Even whistleblowers, those people, neighbors that have or grows the courage to come outside and speak, they should also be protected. One time I was contacted by someone who told me that her neighbor's child was always crying in the middle of the night, screaming, "Leave my pants, leave my pants." And this child was just 5 years old. And she was staying alone with her father. The mother had run away. If I wasn't a good person, I would have exposed that whistleblower. If I had exposed that whistleblower to the institution, the police, they would have told the man. So we should find every means possible to protect the victims, protect whistleblowers, create safe havens, safe channels that these victims can complain. Early education. Tell the children about these things in school so that when it occurs or it wants to occur, they cry out quickly. Educate teachers, to spot these signs early. These are basics that should be done, that should be known. But they are not being done, not at home, not in school. And that's why this error keeps happening. This menace keeps spreading. So I would say that communities should invest more in orientation, awareness, orient families not to cover up these offenders. You see cases where the families will come out and say, please, we want to settle it in-house. How do you settle cases of abuse in-house? A father is sleeping with his 10-month-old son, and you want to settle it in-house. There should be laws who prosecute such people, such families. I feel like if the government really look into this, and the communities really look into these little loopholes, trust me, there will be sanity. Sanity will return back to our communities, to our families. Also, the churches should preach against it, not preach perseverance. These are issues. They tell the mothers, you are the one who is supposed to protect your family. Don't bring them out to the public. My dear, if a minor is being abused, these are issues. There's a case going on in Benue State right now. The woman has been covering up for her husband, and this man has been defiling minors. Do you know that when she picked up the courage to leave, this man is having the guts to sue that she wants custody of the 2 children. And that is when she cried out that this is the reason why she's actually leaving. Now, the judiciary is also a problem. They keep postponing. Even the victims get tired. In Ochaya's case, it is recorded that at some point, witnesses no longer had transport fare to go to the courts. Wow. Till now, justice has not been served. Okay. So I feel we should all sit back, both families, institutions, look at these loopholes and find a way to correct them. How do I go to report a case of abuse at the police station and the IPO is telling me, is there no way we can settle it? The man don't agree now. Can we not talk about it? After all, a family. How? And then the man is coming to tell me that the Okaiben, the head of the family, has given me a list for, what do they call it? Is it abdication? Or something to cleanse the land. And they will just do all that and move on. No, the government should bring strict laws to correct these excesses, this cancer. It's a cancer. Yeah. I'm listening to Madam Stephanie. My heart is breaking. How are you even still sleeping with someone going through the disease called VVF? So I just hope that, like I always say, with programs like this, more awareness should be created for communities to sit up and do right. Okay. Create safe havens for these victims so they can come out and complain. Shelters should be created. Agencies. We need more NGOs, to care after these people hopefully we'll get it right in this generation.
Okay. Let me get to Frank. Frank, you've heard the passionate plea of Precious. I want to even ask, statistically, what's the ratio of rape cases reported versus people convicted? What's the ratio, and how can survivors leverage their experiences to strengthen legal and institutional accountability? First and foremost, give me an idea. What's the ratio of those?
In fairness, issues of violations against child rights are go highly unreported, and if they are reported, they are hardly investigated and prosecuted. The reason it's systemic because first, we don't have proper funding for the institutions that are responsible. If the police could have been able to investigate issues of rape, issues of child molestation and all of that, there wouldn't have been any need to set up NAPTIP. So if NAPTIP is set up to now be responsible for enforcing the standards that are contained in the Violence Against Persons Act, which actually redefined rape, and other sexual offenses, even things like abandonment, child abandonment, spousal abandonment. You leave a woman, even whether you're not married to her, so long as there is a relationship between you and that woman, the woman has a child for you or does not even have a child for you, and you deprive that child of sustenance. All of those things are offenses in Nigeria. Let me say it boldly, that we have some of the highest standards in terms of protecting women and children in the entire world. You request for, I don't have the statistics here because they are hardly done.
There's a wide gap.
There's a wide gap. But let me tell you, the result, there should be a strong resolve on our part to.
There's a wide gap between reporting and return. A huge gap.
Yes,
that's exactly what my question was.
First, there's a huge gap. The huge gap between reports and conviction. But there is a problem. There is hardly reporting for many, many reasons that Precious has mentioned. However, it is understandable because the problems are systemic. The police doesn't have the proper funding. NAPTIP doesn't have the proper funding. The kind of budget that we require, that will fortify its officials to do this job, they don't have it. Now, so with regards to other agencies, law enforcement agencies that are supposed to be responsible for this, I think we are forgetting just in fair contribution to some preventive moves and the required social change that we need must come first from religious institutions, that must continue to condemn these violations against children and against women. Okay. And then Stephanie is making a very important point. However controversial it may be, we should reconsider the issue of child marriage in this country. And we must understand that even the age of 18, it's not sufficient. Nevertheless, we can have some form of change that shifts towards protection rather than taking advantage of these persons and these situations.
Thank you. We've run out of time as usual, as always. Thank you so much, Frank Tietie. Thank you so much, Stephanie Linus. Thank you so much, Precious Oruche, for your very deep insight into this very painful and very troubling conversation. Now, if justice truly matters, every warning sign, from disturbing online confessions to quiet cries for help, must compel action. We can no longer look away, excuse brilliance, or protect predators. The cost of silence is measured in lives like Ochania's, and if we fail to learn, the next tragedy may be already unfolding before our very eyes. And as I keep saying, life is a learning curve. That's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Bruce Osime. Let's keep going, let's keep watching, and let's keep trying. Till next time, when I hope to be here again. God willing, until then, goodbye.